A 1, 2, 3, 4. How about that, Rob? Huh?
Is that how every Bruce Springsteen song starts?
Start of everyone or one. Welcome to the Common Good Podcast, Tuesday, the 7th of March. Welcome aboard. Doug Pagitt here with a very raspy voice because it's been less than 48 hours since I stood scream yelling, and scream singing for 2 hours and 50 minutes at a Bruce Springsteen concert the other night. And in fact, gentlemen, yesterday I had to record a video for this project we're launching about Common Good. This is a good transition to tell people about it. It's called Tell Your Story. Go over to our website, vocommongood.com, and you'll see the Tell Your Story, a chance for people to tell their story. And I had to make a little intro video for that and had to wait to send out our regular email because I couldn't speak on Monday morning from my voice. I said, give me till noon. I have to rest my voice. So glad to be able to chat with you. Doug Pagitt here in Minneapolis. Beautiful sunny day, 30-something degrees. The snow is starting to finally melt. We've been pummeled. How are things there in Fayetteville, Arkansas area?
Yeah, they are beautiful here in Fayetteville, Arkansas area. It is sunny and low 70s, and just feels like spring is on the brink of being here, which is just really, really nice.
I mean, you people that get spring in the month of March, what a privileged class. I'm telling you, just something else. I mean, where Dan and I live, Dan, is this true in West Michigan? Like spring, you're talking April, maybe late April, early May,
for sure.
Early May. I mean, Mother's Day is not necessarily a spring holiday where we live.
We usually have snow on Easter. That's how we roll.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
How are things there in West Michigan, Dan?
It does feel a little springy right now. The snow is melted. The sun is out. It's still pretty cold. But, for a Midwesterner, that's like, low 40s is T-shirt weather. So
you'll take it. Well, it's good to hear from Alex. It's 78 degrees already at 11 o'clock in the morning in Tampa Bay. Jim, I bet it's glorious in California as well. Some of the regulars.
Yeah. Leslie
Leslie
does not want to talk about the weather. She's ready to just jump into it.
Yeah, Leslie's like, you know what I'll tell you? It's hot.
Let's go, Leslie.
The hell that the Republicans are going to live in. That's the thing that's hot. That's the thing that's hot. Hey, I've been grousing about my tickets to the Bruce Springsteen concert. I did go. It was fabulous. Just a public service help to anyone. If you can go. You should go. If you're not a Bruce Springsteen fan, I don't know if you should, because Rob, around me, I don't know if you saw this where you were. I was on a place where we were standing up and lots of heads turning around, kind of looking at each other. And a third of the concert was played with the full lights on in the place, so everybody could see each other. Incredible choice. You could see the people who were there with someone who was a Springsteen fan, because the Springsteen fan was yelling and screaming, and then their seat partner, maybe their wife or husband, was just staring like, what is going on? I don't understand a single word they're singing. How is everyone singing all of these songs? And that moment of feeling like you're in a room where everyone else is going with the energy and totally into it, and you're not, that was evident all around me, more so than I have seen at other Bruce Springsteen concerts. I don't know why. I've been to a dozen or so, but this one was just more people around me that seemed like they did not know what was going on. And this 2 hours and 50 minutes of thunder was something else.
Well, I happened to sit by one of those people, my own wife, who, wouldn't necessarily call herself a Bruce Springsteen fan, and just, knows a few of the radio hits, Dancing in the Dark, because of Courtney Cox, but she was kind of swept up in the excitement and just the wave after wave after wave of music. For people like, listen, you want a 3-hour musical experience. When I saw him in Tulsa, he literally played for 3 hours on the nose. 7:46 to 10:46 or 7:46 to 10:46, like on the nose, 3 hours with barely a break between songs. Normally you go to concerts and like, they'll tell stories between songs and, and catch their breath. And he told 2 stories between songs, and even those were very, very short and music playing while he was talking. There was no stopping in the music. And it was like being in a wave pool and just getting clobbered by musical brilliance. And either you drown in it or you start riding the waves and have a great time. And
riding the waves.
That's what Vanessa did. And, we had a blast.
Great time. There was one of the things I saw at this concert, which I'd never seen at a concert, maybe it's standard and I just wasn't in the section to see it, was a sign language interpreter. In fact, there were 3 of them that rotated throughout, and they are just out of the corner of my eye. So I'd sort of look at the stage sometimes and then turn and look at this person. And they are dancing and interpreting the songs. And I just thought it was just a lovely thing to see, and just a beautiful expression. And it did make me think about all the ways in which movements, musical experiences, political rallies, political movements, religious movements sweep people into something that makes them committed to it at a level that's not just logical, right? You're not in the part of your human ecosystem that is making logical decisions. You're in an experience, and then you're reinterpreting that experience, with your thoughts and all. Not dissimilar to how a lot of people end up thinking the way they think about cultural issues, political issues, all the rest of it. And I was very, very attentive to those kinds of realities, and also I don't know, maybe that room was probably 20,000 people in it where I was. I don't know, maybe a third of the people in there I might find political strong disagreement with, maybe half, I don't know. But you just sort of set all that stuff aside, and it was one of those strange moments where it's like, who cares about that stuff right now? We're just climbing on this train and going down the road.
And Bruce, who's someone who's kind of known for his politics and his music, the concert that I went to, the song set and everything that took place, it was very non-political. Like it was just, I've been to U2 concerts that are very political, and I kind of wondered if it was going to go that direction, and it just didn't. It was just for the love of the music.
It was spectacular. I'll stop talking about it now.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. Can we, poor Dan, you got to go.
I would love to if someone had tickets available, and would have sold them to me at the last minute.
Well, hey, I'll just say, if anybody's in a city, at least this was my experience.
It was about an 8-hour drive away. Otherwise, I would have.
To Minneapolis. If it comes near you, wait till day of, and people around us were buying tickets for $100 in great seats. Like that's the tickets are so expensive that the people buy them and then can't sell them, and then end up selling them off at a steep discount. I personally had to do that, and so did many of the people sitting around me. They bought those seats from others, days before. So keep your eyes out and do it that way. Make it cheap.
Yeah. So let's talk about another place that couldn't sell all the tickets to the seats. And that is the Conservative Political Action Committee having their national meeting, CPAC as it's known. Now, CPAC really kind of rose to prominence in the 80s. Ronald Reagan spoke to CPAC and kind of put it on the map as an event. It has become over the years kind of the who's who of Republican conservative politics shows up at CPAC. In the past, CPAC has been kind of more aligned with like the wonkier wing of the Republican Party, like the National Review, Heritage Foundation, William F. Buckley, intellectual side, like coming up with serious policy issues and trying to innovate solutions, based in talking about conservative principles in new ways, and really has in the past been a real serious player in Republican politics.
Mm-hmm.
Over
Not
the
so much.
last few, not so much now. Over the last few years, it's turned into a circus. I mean, it's a clown show, and it is now, just Trump crazy, and it just, so there was just a remarkable gathering of people who I just fawning in their adoration for all things Donald Trump and the Make America Great Again movement and Christian nationalism, and railing against wokeism, and the whole nine yards. It was just the full-on crazy rally.
Totally. And and it was poorly attended, as you alluded to. And there were 2 or 3 other events going on at precisely the same time, inviting many of the same characters. So it shows that inside the Republican Party, there is a great amount of competition, if not fracture, that's happening. One of those events going on across the street was put together by Nick Fuentes, who's this racist propagandist that's out in the world. Did an event right across the street. DeSantis and Mike Pence were at some other event. Can't remember where that was, like in Texas or something, that they scheduled at precisely the same time. Funders pulled out of CPAC, including Fox News, didn't cover it, partly because of the scandal of Matt Schlapp, who's the organizer of this, credible accusations against him sexually groping a male staff worker during the campaign. So it's just an unbelievable mess.
During the Herschel Walker
stuff.
Campaign. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, the Herschel Walker campaign. And so a small crowd, self-selected crowd that's there, very Trumpy, and yet Donald Trump got 60% of the straw vote there. They do this little poll, like, who do you want to be the next nominee? Even in a setting where it's smaller than normal and has weeded out the people who aren't the CPAC nut jobs, he still only gets 60%.
Yep.
I mean, that is, you can say, well, way ahead of the other people, there, like Ron DeSantis got, 30% or 20%, something like that. But Trump barely got 60%. I mean, that's less than what he'll get in a national election if he is the nominee. It's just this whole Trump thing is clearly not working, and he's likely to be the Republican nominee.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable train wreck of a political party, and has earned, in my view, has earned every bit of it.
Yeah. A few things that are important to note that came out of CPAC. One was, one speaker calling for the eradication of transgenderism, which, deeply concerning because, if you eradicate transgenderism, that's not a thing. Right. Transgender people are a thing, and eradicating transgenderism is, basically calling for the genocide of transgender folks, which is just, just deeply
horrific.
Disturbing.
Yeah.
Stunningly dangerous. And I was just at an event in Arizona this last week with a bunch of people working on the threat of Christian nationalism, and especially the white nationalist, Christian nationalist expression of it. Yeah. And there was a person that gave a presentation on the kinds of language and the kind of political arguments that are made in situations where there becomes not just kind of hostile fascist leadership, but where people turn on one another, where there's some kind of physical violence and some kind of, war on a people group. And the language that is used in all of those settings that they've been able to track, whether it's from Rwanda to Germany to parts of Malaysia, these arguments are precisely this kind of thing. Like people who study this and know what happens when They become wildly dangerous movements. That's what was going on at CPAC. And frankly, that's what's going on across the whole MAGA movement's languaging. And it doesn't seem like the more honest brokers in the Republican superstructure are still willing to do anything about it. Like they'll still say over and over, if Donald Trump and if the MAGA expression is the choice of the Republican Party, we will support it and make sure that we do everything we can to help it have more power in the United States. It's just utterly despicable.
Yeah, I mean, that feels like that is turning a little bit. And maybe this is, once again, wishful thinking on my part, but I've heard establishment Republicans say very distinctly lately that they will not support Donald Trump again.
Oh.
And, Paul Ryan has said that. Larry Hogan, former mayor or governor of Maryland, said that he would not support
Sure.
Trump's nomination for president. So you just kind of hope that it's, I don't know, but
Yeah.
But let me ask you
we've
this.
been doing this since 2015. Like,
Yeah,
no,
totally.
this will be the thing.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Do you find hope that like this, CPAC has turned into basically a smaller, more isolated club for the radical right? Do you find hope in that, or is it just trading like the brazen racism and transphobia for a softer, gentler Ron DeSantis anti-wokeness, like same thing but with a little different veneer?
Well, that to me is the danger, is that Donald Trump has set the expectation that you're going to be a vigilante-like president, right? You're going to go after certain people. You're going to have enemies and targets, and you're going to go after them. Trump said, I am your retribution, all this stuff. So whoever ends up the nominee is going to have to be in that space somewhere, right? He's made that the norm. There's no way you get the nomination without some kind of agreement that you too will act like that. So he has definitely moved the Republican expression into a place where then fill in the blank wokeness or whatever. And I would call it really sort of despising half or 3/4 of America. Like Trump can say, oh no, I'm just talking about the leaders. He's not just talking about leaders. He's talking about individual people, as he and his campaign characterized when they were targeting by name campaign workers at the end of the 2020 campaign. This is the only time that I know of that a president has called out and called for the punishment of a citizen of the United States by other citizens. It's a broken Republican system now that I think can only be there is no way you get the nomination without living in that vein. So I don't think there's a way that it can be salvaged. I think it's really going to be quite dangerous. You know?
Doug, you referenced this quote. In his speech, he said, Donald Trump said, in 2016, I declared, I am your voice. And he goes on, today I add, I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. Like, what? I heard this. Who is writing this? And it's actually scarier when you read it. When you hear him say it, it's almost awkward and painful. Like, he says it with such a complete lack of, like, conviction. Like, sort of stumbling over it. Like, you can tell he's reading it. Like, someone wrote this for a powerful moment, and then he just dropped the ball. But these words are disturbing. Like, I am your retribution? What is that?
Yeah, and vote for me if you've been wronged. What citizen feels like they have been wronged? Like, again, this is the language that you use when you're setting up the, so in politics, you can have at least three expressions. You can have the expression of, us and them, recognizing difference and saying we're all in this. So it's the and conjunction, us and them. You can even have the verses. It's us versus them, right? It's us against them even. I don't prefer that. I think that's harmful. I don't think we should go that way, but that's inside the political space, us versus them. What gets dangerous is us or them. When you move from and to versus to the or, and you're now saying us or them for our survival, that's when it gets dangerous. And that us or them is what Trump has been trafficking in from the beginning and has pulled the Republican Party's expression of us and them or us versus them fully into it's us or them. It's either or. And that is a dangerous, dangerous place to be. And this speech that, I have this friend that I use as sort of my North Star for understanding what MAGA conservatives are believing, said, I hope you listened to that speech. There wasn't a hateful word in it. Like, he literally doesn't see that this kind of thing is the subtext for full-on againstism and either-orism in American politics. And it's extremely dangerous. And I'll just say to all of our the political friends that agree with me and us on certain topics, don't fall into or-ism, right? It is profoundly dangerous, and even try to resist because look, we're not going to get rid of conservatives or MAGA people or nationalists or anything. We have to figure out as a country how we live when they too are part of the us. Now we can decide who has more power. We can decide whose ideas are going to be followed up on, whose ideas are going to have more significance. And we should be having great political debate about all of that, but they're around, they're not going anywhere. And we have to find a way, I think, to call people to a better version of themselves and not get into a level of competition that really has something to do with we have to get rid of these people. But getting rid of transgenderism replacement and all this, that is full on us or them kind of language.
Yeah.
Yep. For sure. Doug, that was so well said. I don't know quite what more to add other than to say I'm really glad that the only political news that CPAC and this really disturbing stuff coming out of CPAC was not the only political news of the week. And in addition to all of this, we get the the little palate cleanser, the little breather, the little you don't get this at a Bruce Springsteen concert where it's wave after wave after wave of song. You don't get a chance to catch your breath and to think for a minute. But you do when Ron DeSantis is on the stage, and you're standing out. You wondered where I was going with that. You're standing out there, and you're waiting for Ron DeSantis to speak, and you notice, is he wearing high heels?
He's got a high lift in the boots. We have seen multiple images of Ron DeSantis in bad boots, and why this man continues to put himself out there, whether it's the knee-high whites during the flood or the boot kicker high heel cowboy boots.
Yeah. So really we obsessed with footwear.
Yeah,
his own M&Ms.
All right, so people that can't see the image, they should see that's an image of Ron DeSantis sitting on a stage getting ready to speak because he's at a political rally. You can tell by all the apparatus around him. And then there's a circle pullout of his boots, and they're a significantly high-heeled boot, which has raised this issue. Why is he wearing high heels? Which gets combined with the fact that Ron DeSantis is 5'9", and the fact that people in the United States have only ever elected one president who's not taller than the average male in America. And look, does this matter?
Can you?
Not to me. Not to me.
Calvin Coolidge.
Calvin Coolidge. Yeah, Calvin
Coolidge
is the only one.
Don't just gloss over him.
Yeah, that's right. Name
those of us who are 5'9" and
those
of us who are 5'9" and claim to be 5'11", deserve not to be glossed over.
And look, does it matter? Well, that he's 5'9"? Well, not to me. Do you know who it seems to matter to? Ron DeSantis. Yeah. Yeah. The reason it comes up is not because we're going to play some sizeism about who's supposed to have more power, because there's this weird evolutionary thing in humanity that thinks that bigger is more powerful and all the rest of it. It's ridiculous and nonsense. And for all the people who do things about big,
easy for you to say.
Thank you very much. Yeah, as somebody who's 6'7", I hear. I mean, I have watched it happen my entire life. People deferring to me and to others, and my son, who's taller than I am, as he was, reaching adolescence and young adulthood, he's like, "Dad, it's unbelievable how people do this thing, like physically move or demur or give up in conversation. Like, it's just a thing, right?" So taller people, bigger people have noticed this. Less tall people have also noticed it. Like, it's a reality. Should it be? I sure hope not. I promise you, I'm around a lot of big people. I played college basketball. All of my friends were taller than the average. It's not a select group of people that are better at the world, right? It's not a real thing, but there's a lot of perception. And the fact that DeSantis keeps dealing with it, bringing it up, because it's not just his boots that he wears. There's a number of things that he does in all public appearances to try to address this issue. And it shows that it's in his head even more than it's in the media's head. And
it's because it's this anti-woke thing is all mixed up with this whole alpha male thing as well. It's like, you have to be the big tough guy. You can't show weakness. You gotta, it's all a soup of awfulness.
Yes,
nonsense.
And all of it too, I think, comes back. And Trisha, who we love, and her comments, and love having her a part of the conversation as we talk about this. She says, "I don't really care what DeSantis wears. His attacks on our education's transgender and corporations is more concerning." Absolutely.
Totally.
But I would add this. What Ron DeSantis shows us his insecurity over and over and over again, that highlights what his character is and how he views the world. And these boots are a window into the insecurity that we can see that he had, like that same insecurity that gets projected into education with, we can't have anybody, teaching anything I might disagree with, or, that makes people I think are good, look bad. We can't have Disney, running its own thing here in our state. We can't have bloggers writing about me. And
yes.
Have you ever heard this story about bloggers having to register?
They're trying to pass a law to have bloggers register if they're going to write about the governor.
Wow.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
So all of this. Yeah. So we use the boot thing to poke a little fun at his insecurity, and to highlight how everything he does is rooted in insecurity and his own personal insecurity. And Dan, I think you're exactly right. I think it goes back to a toxic masculinity and this idea, this macho, you've got to lead in this macho way. And then, Trump has done this. So now he's trying to out macho Trump. And Trish is exactly right. It's a Napoleon complex. It absolutely is. And if we can make fun of him a little bit for it and poke some holes in it by, dude, you're wearing lifts and like you're not supposed to do that. Like, come on, this is, did you not watch Seinfeld? You're not supposed to wear the lifts.
And look, as somebody who could recognize, because he's been in politics his entire adult life, right? He was in the Florida legislature, and then he was a congressman, and now he's a governor. He's been around this stuff.
He's been living on the government dole.
Yeah. He hasn't worked an honest day in his life. That old argument Republicans used to say. which apparently never did count, other people on the military dole, like farmers and military and, retired people. But anyway, what Ron DeSantis could have done was played into it a bit. Hey, look, I'm a mighty 5'9", and got my boots on today, so I can he could, had he been someone who was normal and healthy, just been all about this. Instead, what's clearly coming out from his campaign, not only as a governor, but in all those other roles, not only was he a bully, he's insecure, and he uses policy to bully people, and then tries to find weaknesses to exploit so he can seem strong, and then sets up environments for visuals and all this to make him look and seem something he's not. No reason to have to be doing that stuff. I mean, the point I want to make on this, and I think Rob and Dan, you guys are making it too, is this is not the way it's supposed to go. You shouldn't have to do this stuff. And then to act all insulted when people notice the myriad ways that you've been trying to deal with this. Look, if you're going to put yourself out there as the model leader in what he says is the model state in America, then your leadership is something more than policy decisions, because in this country, we elect people, individuals, to do jobs. We don't elect party representatives who simply perform the function of an established set of policy positions. We don't run a parliamentarian system here. We run a representative form of government, which means there's a representative who does things as an individual person. So the person matters. And as you said so well, Rob, this is an insight into this person.
Yeah.
And look, it can be easy. And there's a comment here, to call someone names, to reference someone with an animal term. And I'll just say that again, calling someone a dog or a horse that's dehumanizing language, and it's not helpful. First of all, it doesn't work. And secondly, it builds this idea that somehow Ron DeSantis is not a full human being who deserves all the cares and considerations of a human being, who wants to use his position as a human being to put forth certain policies that are going to have great effect and use his own personal force to lead in a particular way. All of that is on the table for calling out, but we shouldn't. We always need to humanize these things. And I'll just advise people, it just works better in politics to not use metaphors that dehumanize a person. Is a better way to help people come around the corner to understand the view that you hold, and maybe to take your view and to hold it with you. And the thing about DeSantis is he is constantly creating a situation in which he's saying that some people are more worthy for the care of the country and the citizenry and the government than others, whether it's people who he differs with politically, whether it's the wokeism, or it's a migrant that has come to this country to try to, seek refuge as a refugee, is then set on an airplane and sent around as some sort of a prop. And so this is always this struggling thing with the Republicans who choose to use dehumanizing language and dehumanizing policies.
Yeah.
And I would just say, Ron, you're taking yourself too seriously, and so we're gonna poke some fun at you because you need that. You need that. Yeah. Dan, what is this story you just put up on the screen?
Yeah, did you guys not see this? So
No.
Because speaking of Florida and wanting to silence those that disagree with you, Republicans in Florida are trying to get rid of the Democratic Party. Now, to be clear, this is a long shot bill. It's not going to pass. But a GOP lawmaker in Florida filed this bill Tuesday that would eradicate the Democratic Party in the state. So let's just get rid of the party that opposes us. That seems like the American thing to do.
That's right.
But this is what is happening in Florida with DeSantis at the helm,
It is really something. Look, I have never seen the country has long wanted governors. to be presidents. There's something
Yes.
about being the executive of the executive branch of a state that people feel comfortable with that executive being the executive branch of the government. So you can go back and find after war heroes, we sort of moved to governors. Occasionally there's a senator in there, but for a long time before Barack Obama, there was, senators didn't really have a pathway.
Yeah, Kennedy and Obama are the only senators to be elected president.
Yeah, and a congressman, that Johnson that filled in after it came in after Kennedy, right? So we want governors. It's a thing that's been very, very attractive. Fair enough, but I've never seen a pseudo campaign like DeSantis is pushing that wants to suggest that their state is a full-on model for the country. The way he has said it is essentially, my words, not his, there is only one place where America has really been America in the last 4 years, and that's the state of Florida, right? Like he's going to try to run on things like population increase in Florida. In other words, people are moving to Florida, and he's trying to suggest they're moving to Florida because they want to be in a state where he's the governor. It is unbelievable that he wants to pit Florida as the place. I promise you, if there were not beaches in Florida and warm weather, there would be no one moving to Florida, Ron.
Yes. People move to Florida for two reasons. Number one, there's no income tax, and number two, the weather.
Yeah, death and taxes and weather. That's it. There's a reason people move there. Yeah. And frankly, and here's the other thing. I just read this story that was about the big analysis on the success of Florida, because in some ways, Florida has been a successful state doing the things that it wants to do. If you say what Floridians have voted for over the last 20 years, has it accomplished its goals? Okay. Well, you've had Republican governors, you've had Democratic governors, and you've had Ron DeSantis. Okay. So you've got this, you've got the full range. Many of the successes of the things that the Ron DeSantis people are cheering are playouts from when Jeb Bush was the governor. They were systemic changes that Jeb Bush put in place and that Governor Chris put into place. So the idea here that the Ron DeSantis comes in is like, hey, I've been governor for 48 months. Look what I did to Florida. It's just simply shocking, right? Talk about a guy taking credit for other people's efforts, and talk about someone taking credit for other people's hard work. Rob and Dan, I remember a day when Republicans would say things like, it's the hardworking people of America that make America great, not our politicians. Well, Ron DeSantis, who wants to put a shutdown on politicians, put a shutdown, by removing the Democratic Party, put a shutdown on the press, and put a shutdown on business, wants to take all the credit for the people working in Florida. Yeah. Now, why are we going on and on about this? Because one of two people is going to be the nominee for the Republican Party. There's two visions, Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump. That's pretty much it. If Donald Trump does say, I'm going to take a deal with the Justice Department and not go to jail or have a trial for one of a half a dozen pending cases against him and not run for office, and then Ron DeSantis decides not to run, there's maybe a possibility that there's another candidate in the next 18 months that rises to the surface. But the chances of both of those things happening are pretty slim. So here's a guy who wants to take credit in Florida for things that aren't even his, and the stuff he's been doing, it's just base rattling. Like it's just pumping up the base in a way that is nonsense. But I hear it from Republicans all over the country. When they talk about Ron DeSantis, they talk about how great the state of Florida is. These were people who hated the state of Florida when Chris was the governor. Right. It was the problem, and now apparently it's the mighty solution. But I will say this: I know this is hard for Trish, and maybe it's hard for Alex because they live there. But people in Florida really like Ron DeSantis. Independents and hardwired Republicans. So look, I think he's incompetent to be president. I don't even think he's a good governor. But that's a minority opinion for people in Florida. So he's a real player in this political scene.
And it sounds like it's most likely that if he is the Republican nominee, he'll be facing President Joe Biden running
Yeah.
for a second term.
Big meeting, I guess, over the weekend or late last week with the Democratic peoples, in the government.
Intelligentsia.
And they came out of that. They came out of that saying want Biden to run again.
Yeah.
So
The deep state has decided.
He's clearly laying out the pathway for an announcement that he's going to seek another term as president. And so somehow, since 2008, there will have only been one presidential election where Joe Biden's name was not on the ballot.
Wow.
Is anyone else just like really bummed out about this?
Well, I
understand the calculus.
Yeah.
And
Joe Biden has been a far more effective president than I ever imagined that he would be. And at the same time, I feel like it all could come crashing down at any moment. And maybe all of that will be unfounded. Maybe I have consistently underestimated Joe Biden, and it looks like, as he heads into a re-election campaign, I will continue to completely underestimate Joe Biden. But
look, he's been on the ballot all but one presidential campaign since 2008, so it's a long time. He's won them all. I think he has won every election that he has been in. I think he has never lost.
There was a Democratic primary, that he didn't come through.
Yeah, that's true. In 1988, dropped down. But when his name was on the ballot for an official election, not some sort of party picking process, he's won them all. I'm sure that's rolling around his head, and he's 80 or 81 and has been around for a very long time. And this really seemed like a moment where he could say, what a great presidency I had. It's time to move on. But that's not happening. It's clearly 6 months ago, I was hopeful that it was happening. I thought here's a possibility for not having Trump or Biden on the as the choices.
Yeah.
And if we're back into 2020, same, you could reuse a number of the ads and I don't think Mike Pence is going to be Donald Trump's vice president's pick.
No.
It's really something. It's going to feel to the country like Groundhog's Day movie.
Yeah.
We're just back in it again. And I don't know what the answer to that is. I voted for Biden. I wore a Biden-Harris t-shirt around my house yesterday. I went to the Bruce Springsteen concert. I'm glad he's the president. Voted for him, supported him, worked for him.
Yep.
I'll do it again. But doggone it. It just seemed like, it would be a time to, as Bob Seger would say, turn the page. And it doesn't seem to be.
Well, look, if Biden keeps doing stuff like this, did you guys see this this news that the Biden administration is considering reinstating detention of migrant families? They're trying to get ready for Title 42 phasing out, and they're worried about optics at the border. They're worried about all this stuff, worried about looking tough. And so they're thinking, hey, why don't we go back to that thing that Trump was so good at, locking up families with children?
Yep. Look, the Biden administration has been good on so many things. The border and immigration has not been one of them. They're trying to get better on parts of immigration. And for people that are into this stuff, they know who Dreamers are and they know what TPS is. They know about the worker visas and so on. But their total lack of commitment to engaging on the border with a beautiful vision for how this should be is really disturbing. And if they do these kinds of things, that is whether or not it has great political consequence, I don't think it will, only because it's very hard to get Americans to care about people trapped on the wrong side of a border or on the wrong side of a detention fence. People just don't seem to care. But morally, it's reprehensible. What the lack of care and concern. Just Saturday, I was there. I was at the border wall, went into Mexico, went with Dora, who's one of the people that works in Sasabe, Mexico, and that we met along the ride. And you can watch her story on our YouTube channel and in the forthcoming documentary, The We the People Ride. And we went there, and hearing her as an on-the-ground working person say, in the first 4 months, we had regular contact with the administration, a number of us who are working hands on the board. Now there's just no contact at all. They have abandoned engagement on the border. And I don't understand why. And they turned it over, to Vice President Harris to be the one in charge of it. And they should have appointed a czar. Remember when there were czars? Remember when people were appointed to be in charge of things and we call them a czar? Boy, those were cute days, like the Russian czar. They should have appointed somebody to be the contact and at the border and pulling together the people who are working there and figuring out these issues. If they are doing this and we just don't know about it, that's even more tragic, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you've got people actually really, really working on this, and people don't know about it. Instead, news stories like this and lived experience on the border is that, and Democrats don't want to talk about it.
Right.
It didn't come up in the State of the Union. It's not in a policy priority. There's some work being done on opening up the refugee process. They're going to extend it maybe to people from Nicaragua. They're going to extend the category, but they're using a very broken system of deciding which nations people come from that get preferential treatment, instead of being engaged and calling this stuff out and messaging on it day after day after day. And that's what they should be doing. They're not. And the reason is it's not a political winner for them.
Right.
And that's heartbreaking, right? I wish it was a political winner. I wish caring about people who are trying to enter this country in a legal way. I wish they were down there saying, hey, y'all asking the question, why don't, quote, these people come legally? That's the question to be asked. Why didn't they come legally? Why do these people who are in detention centers, why are they in detention centers? Because there is not a pathway for them to come legally.
Yep.
That's why.
Yes. Water flows the path of least resistance. And if you imagine how difficult the process is, how unnavigable it is.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, we might have lost Rob for a minute.
Yeah, see, I think they're listening in and they've shut us down already. Big states.
Yep,
big
already shut us
states
down.
Big
But yeah,
state,
that's the
big
thing.
tech.
This is, in conjunction with the Biden administration considering enacting a new policy where if someone is applying for asylum at the border, they have to have applied for asylum in every country they've come through to get to America. So the people we met that traveled from Honduras or Guatemala, that traveled thousands of miles with the dream of creating a better life for their families, they would have to do the asylum process in every country along the way, or they won't be allowed to even apply for asylum in the U.S., which is just absurd.
Absurd. And Dan, I just learned when I was down there this weekend from Dora how this process is supposed to work, and this won't shock you. And we'll do a whole show on this this week or next. Somebody has to use a smartphone or a computer in order to do that application. Do you know who is now set up a service to provide to the migrants to fill out their applications? Yep. The cartels.
Of course.
The cartels. So they charge them multiple thousands of dollars to fill that stuff out. Because as it turns out, when you're trying to flee a country, you don't have great cell service. Your battery might not last a really long time. And navigating a website on your mobile phone, if you've ever tried to navigate a government website. So the cartel is making billions of dollars helping people or extorting people as they fill out this very process. And again, it's the kind of thing that somehow makes sense to people. Sure, they should apply in their own country. I mean, some of us have been arguing this for a decade. If you want people to apply for asylum before they get to the border, make it possible to do it in another country. So they now make it possible, or they make it a demand, and then the infrastructure that they used to do. And like a lot of webs, if anybody ever tried to go onto the healthcare system to apply for healthcare, remember under Obamacare?
Yeah. Yes.
And it was only open from like 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. Like, it's a website, but they had open and closed periods. That's a government thing, and that's in place as well. So people have to sit in an online queue, just like with healthcare.gov, while they wait to log in, and then they get logged out day after day after day.
Yeah.
So the things that people we think should sort of make some sense just don't make any sense. And it has not been taken aggressively by the Biden administration. I guess what we can hope for is that they'll do it in their second term. You know, you can always hold out for that. It sort of ends up on the second term list of things. But look, all y'all, if you want to put any pressure on anyone, say it to your elected officials and all the rest. Ask them to care about not only the immigration system, because it's a big topic, but to care about the access into the country and how it's made, and the actual border and all the rest of it. But we'll do a whole show on this in a week or so.
Yeah. Well, I am bumping up against a hard break for me, but I would love for the two of you to talk about what Vote Common Good is up to, and it's a march on Christian nationalism. And Dan, I'm so excited about the project you've been working on. I am already subscribed and a listener. This is really great stuff, and would love to see people jump on board and learn all about this.
Yeah, we're excited about it too. This whole month, we're focusing on the threat of Christian nationalism. We're calling it the March on Christian National, March of Christian. We're marching.
March on Christian nationalism.
It's the month of March. We're marching on Christian nationalism. But we're doing a number of things. One of which I'll talk about is this new podcast we launched just this last Friday. It's called Confronting Christian Nationalism. If you go to any of your podcast platforms and just search Confronting Christian Nationalism, this will pop up. We hope you subscribe and leave us a little review. But this content comes from our live events that we're doing on tour over the last election cycle, where we were traveling the country in a big bus talking to people about the threat of Christian nationalism. We used tons of clips from people that self-identify as Christian nationalists, and a bunch of interviews as well from experts, theologians, sociologists who oppose Christian nationalism, think it's maybe a bad idea for democracy and the church. And we've distilled it into this this limited series, podcast series. So it's kind of a bite-sized chunks, about half-hour episodes that take you through what Christian nationalism is, why it's bad, why it's attractive to people, and what churches and individuals can do about it. So make sure you check that out.
And I'll just add to that, Dan, that if people are looking for a deeper definition of what Christian nationalism is, so that you recognize why people hold to it, somewhere around 50% of the U.S. population, when surveyed, holds to views that would be considered Christian nationalist views. And if that makes your head explode, this podcast is designed to help you understand what is it that's attractive about it, or why does Christian nationalism make sense to certain people. That's what this is designed to do. So it's, as Dan said, it's in parts, roughly 30-minute podcasts coming out weekly for the next 6 weeks, and then you'll end up with a whole thing. If you just can't wait, we do have an online version of the training that you can watch that's an hour and a half long, and you can sort of go through the whole thing. But the podcast is designed to be a podcast-like experience. So that's some of our material. We also have other material on our website. We're going to be part of 2 different events coming still in the month of March. One of those, Vote Common Good, is is a co-host of an international event in Oxford, England, with people from around the world who are confronting Christian nationalism in different contexts. We'll be bringing out some reports and some interviews and content from that because it's a global work. And then we're also involved with a group in Washington, with a gathering in Washington, D.C. that's going to be happening at the end of the month, where confronting Christian nationalism is a theme and how can the overall political system work on it. So we think it's an important thing for us to focus on. That's why we're spending the month of March on Christian nationalism in our March on Christian Nationalism effort. And also, it's just such a, to people who prefer a good solid pun or dad joke, it's just
real cute,
world class. Yeah, March on Christian Nationalism. And we're actually trying to encourage a number of other groups and organizations every year to take on the month of March as a focus on Christian nationalism, so that there's kind of a rallying call to spend some time reminding us that Christian nationalism has been around, has threatened this country nonstop from its founding. And there's a new version of it, or I might even say a new variant of it, that's alive and well today, and something that we really need to address. So lots of resources over on our website. And we really believe that two issues will help voters who have found themselves to be attached to Republican Party by accident because of their religious tradition, which is our primary work that we do. We try to help people who've been, have a faith commitment that just came with a side order of Republicanism, to swap that out. And Christian nationalism is one of those topics, and treatment of migrants and refugees is another. These are two issues that people really don't want in their politics, and they really don't want in their faith. And so we think these are great issues to help somebody take a look and to say, maybe I don't feel as aligned with the Republican Party. That is, gives soft support to Christian nationalism and hard support to Christian nationalism on a constant and ongoing basis. So give a listen to that podcast. The first two episodes are out. The first one is super short. It's just a little trailer. So if you go there and you see, two episodes, one of them is the trailer, tells you what it's about, and then the other one is the first installment. And on Friday, the next one will come, and then every Friday for the next number of weeks, you'll be able to have a chance to keep up with that. So.
Yeah, and Tricia in the chat says, are they still having those rallies for Christian nationalism? The fervor and marketing seems to have died down. I think maybe there's a lull, but things like Christian nationalism, they didn't happen by accident, and it won't go away by accident either. This is something that for years has lived just below the surface of general public recognition, but it's in the water of the evangelical church, and so this is something we have to address, whether or not they're holding outright rallies in support of it, or just, like you said, Doug, the soft push for Christian nationalism that comes from pulpits and pundits.
Yeah, well said. Tricia, the answer to this is yes. The tours that Michael Flynn has been on are still ongoing. In fact, Vote Common Good is going to be part of an action in May in Florida, down in Miami. So Alex, let's have a road trip. We're going to pull some people together because there's a big event going on down in Miami, and we're going to have a counter action there for these. So the answer is yes, they are still going on. Yes, there is still an aggressive push to recruit people into Christian nationalism through not only a series of events, but through a number of sophisticated apparatus within the right wing of the Republican Party that wants people to be into all of this. So yeah, it's not as top of mind to people as it was when the insurrection was clearly an outward sign. You might call this the off season, but in this off season, the preparation is severe. And when we get into the election season in just another number of months, yes, it's going to be a very important topic and something that really does need to be addressed. And we've got a couple of things in the works that we think are going to help to raise awareness around this on the national level in politics. So, and look, it's. I believe we're better off if we know and understand Christian nationalism and see it as a viable option for some people to hold and to believe, at least from their vantage point. People who hold to Christian nationalist views hold them because they believe they make the most sense. They don't believe them because they think they're harmful to the country and harmful to their faith. So to understand how is it that you think this is a positive thing is a crucial part of being capable and competent to be able to talk about Christian nationalism with friends and family in a way that makes sense, because you would be shocked. In fact, we're going to be putting out a survey here at the end of the week for you to take your own how Christian nationalist am I survey to find out. So we're going to ask you the same questions that are asked in the public surveys, and you'll be surprised at the kinds of results that are going to come from this. How many people have soft and hard support for ideas that are clearly the basis of Christian nationalism?
Yeah.
So big March push on all this, and we'll be talking about even some more tomorrow. So if you're into all of this, we'll be up on it.
Yeah. Well, thanks to everyone in the chat. Thanks for hanging out with us. Dana, Edward, Trisha, Alex, Jim. Always good to see you, Jim. Hope we get out to Santa Barbara soon as well. That'd be great.
Yeah. The answer is always yes. We'll go to Santa Barbara. Haji. Yeah. Hey, and if you're hearing all these names and you're like, where are we getting those? They're people that are chatting in the chat. And if you're in one of our streams, you might only see some of these names. The other people are maybe on Twitter or on Facebook or on our YouTube channel, which is our preferred place for you to watch and engage with all of this. So head over to our YouTube channel if you like watching this kind of thing. But if you're on Facebook and Twitter and all the rest, we certainly don't want to tell you what to do. So glad to have you around.
Yep. Well, we'll see you all tomorrow. Yeah, I think so.
All right.